Will Ben Simmons ever play another NBA game? For a lot of you guys, having this conversation is going to seem like an overreaction, but I think at this point, even though it seems extreme, I think this is a conversation that we've got to start having. I haven't really checked up on the Ben Simmons situation in a while on my channel, but really not much has changed. Obviously, he's still not playing. It doesn't really look like there's a lot of a trade market for him at all. And it really doesn't look like anything's going to happen soon. And at this point, I honestly do think it's looking like Ben Simmons' career is seriously in jeopardy here. So that's what I'm going to be discussing and analyzing in today's video. Now, before we do start, if any of you guys here are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're close to 1,000, and it turns out that in the last month, about 93% of you guys watching my videos aren't subscribed to the channel. Obviously, that's a huge number. We got to get that up to get some more subs. So if you're new, make sure you hit that subscribe button to help out the channel. With that being said, let's get started. So let me start off by just going over the whole situation with Ben Simmons, just to refresh our minds and allow us what the situation is really looking like here. So as you know, back in the playoffs of last year, Ben Simmons pretty much had the worst playoff performance from a player that made the All-Star team in that same season. I mean, it got to the point where he was such a liability from the free throw line that the Wizards and Hawks, the teams that the Sixers were facing in the playoffs, were essentially just fouling him at the end of games just so he could go to the line and miss free throws. And in the playoffs overall, he shot 34% from the free throw line on 6 attempts per game, which is obviously just absolutely insanely horrible. And then also, it just looked like his confidence was just completely down and diminished. And we see how basically in the playoffs, and really specifically against the Atlanta Hawks, how his confidence was at such a low level that he wouldn't even be able to shoot like wide open layups, wide open dunks. We all know that one clip of when he was driving to the rim, pretty much really close game in the fourth quarter, game 7, he had a wide open dunk and decided to pass it up to Matisse Thybulle when only Trae Young was in the paint guarding him there. So that was really something that I think defined what Simmons was going through at the time. It's just how he had absolutely no confidence. And as we know, there's a lot of things about just his offensive game in general over really the course of the last few years of how it just kind of disrupts the flow of his team, his inability to space the floor and shoot the three. And sometimes we see how his defenders can really sag off of him and just try to defend the paint when he has the ball, because he is absolutely no threat on the perimeter. So it's no question that Ben's game was and really still is at an all-time low statistically, and with the eye test, his confidence level and really kind of every aspect of his game except maybe his defense was really at an all-time low. And as we know, in the offseason, he's just absolutely furious with the situation he's in. To be quite honest, I don't really see why he was so mad at the Sixers organization. It was just more the Sixers fans and how they're really giving up on him. And to be honest, they actually have good reasoning to give up on him too. I mean, he's really the only reason that this whole situation is happening, and the big decline in his game and how he's not really putting in the work in, and his confidence level is at an all-time low. That's really the cause for all of this. But basically, as we know, what happened in the offseason is Ben Simmons is now furious with the situation he's in. He's sitting out games, he's not going to practices during training camp, and then the whole situation financially got a little bit ugly. I'm not really sure about all the details, to be completely honest. I think the Sixers are still technically paying him because they have to, but there was some money that they owed him during the offseason this year, and like they didn't pay him, and there was some controversy with that and whatever too. So basically, the situation was just a whole mess. Now, throughout the season, everyone's been talking about Ben Simmons' trade possibilities, like certain mock trades for him, all that kind of stuff, because, I mean, what other way is the situation going to end? Like, it looked for a little bit in training camp like he was going to come back, but then he came to practice. Doc Rivers kicked him out when he, like, refused to do a drill or something. He was acting like a complete idiot. He wasn't putting in any work, and you could tell he just really didn't want to be in a basketball or Philadelphia 76ers environment in general. And then obviously he goes home, and like I said, just everyone's talking about different trade possibilities for him. And something I really noticed throughout the whole situation was that there's really no big strong market out there for Ben Simmons. Obviously, for his career statistically, and like I said, just with his confidence level and everything, he's just at an all-time low. No one really wants to get that type of player who's not only not going to provide a lot offensively for your team, but he's also not really looking like he's willing to put work in to improve his overall game. He looks like kind of a locker room cancer right now, whether you think that's true or not, that's exactly what's being shown with the situation with the Sixers right now. And also with the Sixers trying to trade him, they're asking for way too much, or at least they were early in the offseason. I mean, we heard rumors about potential trades with the Toronto Raptors where they were asking for like Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, multiple draft picks. Obviously, that makes completely no sense at all. Like, to be honest, as a Raptors fan right now, I would not even really come close, honestly, to trading OG alone for Ben Simmons straight up. So obviously the Sixers were way out of their minds looking for something of that. And then with there was rumors of mock trades to the Portland Trailblazers where they were asking for like 3 or 4 draft picks or something. That just makes no sense at all. There was rumors that the only thing that they were willing to get from the Houston Rockets if they wanted to do a trade there was Jalen Green. And again, Jalen Green is like, he has so much potential. He's obviously off to a rough start this year, but he could be a potential 25 to 30 point per game scorer in the future who has a lot of upside and is in his rookie season, is still only like 20 years old. That obviously makes no sense at all as well. So really all of the trade rumors that we were hearing about made no sense at all. And really throughout this whole season, we haven't heard a lot of talks and rumors about potential trades for Ben Simmons during the season. And I just think that the market for Ben Simmons has lowered so much that if we're talking about this year only, I really don't see how he's going to be playing this year. Like I said, his value is still at an all-time low. No one really wants him right now for all the reasons I discussed. And not to mention, too, that throughout his career, statistically especially, he is actually getting worse every year, and especially in the playoffs. I mean, his regular season numbers are one thing, but in the playoffs, we've seen how, especially with just little things like making free throws and having the confidence to take the amount of shots that you should as a player who's pretty dominant at the rim when he wants to be, Ben Simmons is just statistically declining here. Like, we look at some of his playoff stats from really the 3 playoffs that he's been in his career so far. In the 2018 playoffs, he did put up over 16 points per game, shot 71% from the free throw line, which, as we know, for Ben Simmons is definitely pretty good, and was still confident enough to shoot almost 13 field goal attempts per game, which is pretty much what he should be taking per game. In the 2019 playoffs, you could start to see that confidence go down a little bit, and his free throw attempt or free throw shooting was as well. I remember the series against the Raptors, sometimes they would even intentionally foul him as well, and in that playoffs overall, he averaged just under 14 points per game, less than 10 field goal attempts per game, which obviously is unacceptable, and then only shot 57.5% from the free throw line. And then, of course, last year, everything in the playoffs just going completely downhill, only averaging 12 points per game, shooting less than 8 field goal attempts per game, and shooting one of the worst, like literally probably the worst statistical free throw show that we have ever seen in playoff history. Like, he shot 34% from the free throw line on 6 attempts per game. There was hack of Simmons at the end of the games. And obviously, overall, it was just a complete you-know-what show. So I think it's just important to note how low Simmons' value is right now, how he's getting worse each year, especially in the playoffs. If you're not going to have someone who's like willing to do the same thing that they did in the regular season in the playoffs, and they're just not confident enough to play at that level, I mean, you can try to develop them to the point where they can, because Simmons is still a special talent, like on the defensive end of the floor. His playmaking is still pretty good. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on as well. But his value is just so low right now. Like I said, there's really no market for him right now. I mean, I would actually be shocked if we were to see him play this season. And it's important to note, too, that Simmons is not in game shape right now. And I think one of the things that I think could put his career in jeopardy is how he's not showing any work ethic at all as well. Like, if you were to go around the NBA right now and ask the other 29 coaches in the league if they would want a player like Ben Simmons on their team, if you were to get if they were to say that to the media, they'd probably say yes just to stay out of drama. But if they're to actually answer honestly, I really don't see how they could say yes. Like, he makes the offensive flow of your team worse with his inability to shoot, and he's just not willing to put in the work. Like, it's taken 5 years, and he still, or more than that actually, like 5 to 6 years, and he still hasn't even come close to developing a three-point shot. And especially recently, like this whole year, he's probably just been sitting at his home on his couch. Like, he's just not in game shape right now. So especially this season, like I said, I'd be shocked if he came back. The only thing about Ben Simmons that makes it so that his career might keep going on is, like I said, he's still a pretty talented overall basketball player. I mean, when he is getting out in transition, he can definitely be he has good court vision, he can pass it out to the three-point line, and especially if he's like playing with a team who has good spacing, that could really maximize his playmaking ability. And he's obviously, he can be dominant at the rim when he puts his mind to it, and he has good confidence, and he's willing to go to the rim, and he just has that mindset. That's another thing, he just got to get his mind right, really, to the point where he's confident enough to do that again. And then defensively, he's probably still a top 10 defender in the game. If he came back right now, just because he hasn't played in a while, I don't think he would be a top 10 defender in the game, but in terms of last season, he definitely was. He was in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. He's probably still the best perimeter defender in the league, maybe other than a guy like Drew Holiday. So he's still talented. It's just a tough situation overall to decide. The answer to the question that I put in the title in today's video: will Ben Simmons ever play again? Another thing you gotta factor in here is that his contract is not up until 2025. So it's not like he can just sign with the team and there doesn't have to be any trade complications or anything. He's kind of stuck with the Sixers for a while if he doesn't get traded. So if you guys want my answer to the question I put in today's title, I mean, it's a really tough call at this point. Like, I don't really see if Ben Simmons can at least come back at the same level that he was playing at before. Like, I don't think he's ever going to make an all-star team again. In terms of this season only, I don't think he's coming back to play basketball at all. With all the thing I discussed in today's video, like just the context of the situation we're in, how the Sixers are pretty much asking way too much for him in a return for a trade for him, and there's really no big trade market for him, especially right now. Statistically, he's been getting worse over his career. He's not in game shape. All of these things have to factor into my decision, where I think that he's definitely not going to be playing this year or really anytime soon at all. But the fact that Ben Simmons is still very talented, and if he can just get his confidence level up, he can still be probably a top 50 player in the NBA right now. I think that means that he's got to come back at some point. I mean, as much as I don't like Ben Simmons and I don't like the way that he plays the game and how he doesn't really put in that much work, I still can't deny the talent that he does have, especially on the defensive end of the floor and his basketball IQ. And because of that, I just can't see him having his whole talent wasted throughout his whole career. So to answer the question, I do think that at some point we have to see Ben Simmons. At some point, someone's going to say that this is ridiculous. This guy, despite his flaws, is way too good to have his talent wasted throughout his whole career. He's still young, and we still have to give him kind of a fifth chance at this point. I was going to say second chance, but it's not even that. Just like a fifth chance at this point. But as much as I don't like Ben Simmons, as I've said a lot throughout this video, he's still talented enough to the point where at some point he's going to play in the NBA again. But like I said throughout today's video, this is a conversation we got to start having. I think that Ben Simmons' NBA career is in jeopardy, and it's going to take a lot to get him back at some point throughout his entire career. So that's what I've got for you guys in today's video. Be sure to leave your comments down below and your thoughts on this whole situation with Ben Simmons. And if you think he's going to play this season or really ever in his career again. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next video.